Sponsored by Local Touch Online, a free online magazine that has an exclusive article by Pop Culture Geekery every month.
All right.
Hello, everyone. Today, let's welcome Jedi Master Vince to the table. How you doing, Vince?
May the fourth be with you.
Yeah, may the fourth be with all of you. So, we unfortunately won't get this out on May the 4th. I'm hoping to get it out by Revenge of the 5th. So,
That'd be cool.
So, for those of you who don't know, Vince and his wife Colleen have their own YouTube show called Geek Out SA. I actually had the honor of being on there a couple weeks back, so that's in our playlists, and I will definitely have a link to their YouTube show in the comments below. But they just hit, they surpassed actually 1,000 subscribers, so yay! Confetti effects.
Yeah, I'm very happy about that.
And if you had been following Geek Out SA, that lightsaber that Vince just showed off, you could have had a chance to win that. So, but unfortunately, it's already been given away. So,
well, that one was mine. That one is mine. The other one is sitting over here. But yeah, that's getting ready to get packed up once we get a hold of whoever Blinking 23 is.
So, see, guys, you should be following Geek Out SA because you don't know what cool stuff they're going to give away next. So. But we, as we've seen today, lots of great Star Wars news. We saw that Taika Waititi is going to get his own Star Wars movie, so yay on that one. We're told they're going to get Chris Hemsworth, with the Thor, lightning eyes as a Jedi. They just seem to be like really good buddies, so I wouldn't be surprised if he convinces him to be in there, even if it's just as a cameo. So,
well, they keep pushing stuff on online talking about Keanu Reeves being on Star Wars. So I don't know how true that is.
I don't know, man. He's busy with The Matrix now, and then they're going to do John Wick 4. So he's a busy man. So
yeah.
If they don't, oh, look, there's Thor. Speaking of Thor, that's our Thor. That's our cat Thor. So anyway, we're going to do a couple of things tonight. We're going to talk about Clone Wars Season 7, which just wrapped up today. And then we're actually going to talk about Clone Wars, the series as a whole. But Vince, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about, what does Star Wars mean to you? Why is it important to you? Stuff like that.
Well, I think, I probably... saw it in the theaters in 78. They were playing it at the Aztec. My dad took me to go see the very first Star Wars. So that's really got me into sci-fi altogether. And once I saw lightsabers on there, I was just like, that's the coolest thing ever. A Jedi is the coolest thing to be. But I've collected the toys, Legos, little cars. If it's Star Wars, I probably have it somewhere in the house. Because I have a whole wall over here that you see on the show, and that's just maybe half of what I have in Star Wars.
Yeah, and I just recently added one more piece of that collection for you.
Yes, that was nice. Thank you for that. I really appreciate that.
You're welcome. Yeah, I sent Vince a vintage Return of the Jedi magazine, complete with my, let's see, I would have been probably around 5. My 5-year-old doodles are in there somewhere.
Nice.
But yeah, and unfortunately, when you were watching Star Wars, I wasn't even born yet. But it was coming just a year later, But yeah, I caught up probably when it was shown on TV, and then later VHS. I always remember it seemed like it was a Thanksgiving thing. It's like every time the Thanksgiving roll around, it's like the channel USA would show all 3 of them the three existing ones at the time.
Well, the only one that I saw of the first three, of 4, 5, and 6, the only one I saw was 4. I never saw 5 or 6 in the theaters. I only saw the first one. All the other ones I had to wait till it came out in cable. Back in the day.
Yeah. But like Disney's been promoting, you can watch everything and anything Star Wars except for the Ewok Adventure. They don't have that on Disney Plus yet.
They don't have Solo on there.
Oh, I think that's the right thing. They'll get it eventually, though.
Yeah.
So let's just focus on like I said, season 7 at first, because that's the one that was commissioned after Disney bought Star Wars, because they abruptly canceled the Clone Wars. I know a lot of people were upset about that. So it took them a while, but they were able to come back around and finish it. It still seems like they didn't get to do everything they wanted to do just based on what we got, but I feel like they still got to do probably some of the leftover ideas.
It didn't seem kind of rushed. To me, it seemed kind of rushed, and it seemed like there were like 2 extra episodes that didn't really need to be there.
Well, I looked back, and it was funny because I just scrolled back at the thumbnails just to kind of remind myself what I had watched, and it's basically 3 arcs. It's the Bad Batch, it's Ahsoka, Rafa, and Trace, and then it's the Clone Wars because they give it a new logo and everything for those last 4 episodes, I think.
Yeah.
And they treat it almost like a theatrical piece. And then of course that's the 3rd arc. So yeah, I guess just give our I really want to focus on those last 4 episodes because those are the relevant ones. Like those are the ones everybody was waiting for.
Yeah.
But if you have anything to comment on the first 2, I'll just say real quick, the Bad Batch was fine. I mean, they were cool. It was one of those ideas that probably would have been better had we met them a lot sooner.
Right.
But yeah, they were entertaining. Somebody called them the Avengers of the Clones, so I was just like, yeah, I can see that, It
was interesting. It was fresh. I really enjoyed the first part. I didn't have a problem with it like whatsoever. It wasn't until the second part where it was where Ahsoka comes in.
Oh, with her, Rafa, and Trace.
Yeah, that went a little bit slow for me. There was 2 episodes in there that I think didn't need to be there. Could have been something else.
Yeah, that one did seem more like that they really wanted to introduce those characters, but again, kind of like you said, they're like, well, we've only got so many episodes left, so if we don't get them in here now, we're not going to get them in at all. So, I mean, they were fine, but again, I guess a lot of people were just expecting more. But
yeah, well, people want to see Ahsoka, and people want to see Anakin, and people want to see Obi-Wan. So those are the people that they want to see, and they also want to see the clones. And I think that was missing for a couple of those episodes that you were just like, okay, we get it, move on, keep going. But then the last episode of that one was actually kind of exciting and kind of like got me over the hump to where I was like, oh, okay, well, it's going to be better, I hope.
And it could have easily been a testing ground. Sometimes I feel like they put certain ideas out there just to kind of see, especially nowadays, more connection with fans, more immediate reaction. So that way they can decide, okay, so, if fans really like these characters, maybe we can show them up later. Because as we've seen, the cry for more Ahsoka was heard because I don't know if it's still official yet or not, but I know they're toting Rosario Dawson to play her in The Mandalorian. So hopefully that comes to pass because I love that actress, and I have come to love Ahsoka as we've followed her, which we'll talk about that more in the overview. But yeah, I mean that basically sums up those first 2 arcs, and then we get to the meat of the 7th season. So basically, we get back to the whole issue with Darth Maul, controlling the Mandalorian homeworld, and that, I guess that's where they kind of crossed it back over, where Ahsoka ended up there. She re-meets Bo-Katan, is that her name? The Mandalorian with the short red hair, and so they start setting up, how Ahsoka's going to approach the Republic about help for that, to dethrone Maul, and that's when we finally get Ahsoka meet back up with Anakin and Obi-Wan, even though it's still kind of short and sweet, but that, I don't know, that seemed like what was the setup for me, which I was fine.
Yeah.
But we it is pretty impressive, I guess. Didn't even consider this, but that they got the entire voice cast to come back, because not that I guess nowadays you don't really lose track of actors. Everybody's connected. But there was a time when it would have been hard to see if you can still find the original voice actors. And plus, it wasn't that many years ago. But this thing started in 2007. I think I see it when you pull it up on Disney Plus. It says 2007. So that was quite a while ago.
Quite a bit ago.
But
they were all really good. From watching it from start to ending, really great show. I wish that we could go more with it, because this season was really short compared to the other seasons.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting in this one where they kind of let it overlap Revenge of the Sith, and it seemed like they were a lot more subtle about it than in the trailers. It seemed like it was going to be more overt, because really the only scene that really overlaps is the Jedi Council meeting, and where it's right before Anakin in Revenge of the Sith, where he goes to confront the Chancellor. Yeah. And then, of course, here they overlap the dialogue from there, while Ahsoka basically, I shouldn't necessarily hear him, but she feels what Anakin's going through as he's trying to defend the Chancellor when Mace Windu's killing him. So that was a pretty intense scene. And then, of course, when Order 66 is finally, enacted, and the clones turn on her, and she just barely escapes with the help of Rex, who is actually struggling with Order 66. So that was pretty interesting.
Which I guess was really interesting about that, I was like, because I heard that Rex was one of the ones that was supposed to he didn't execute Order 66. I thought he wasn't supposed to have done it at all, and he was supposed to have taken out his chip before that point. But when they changed it a little bit, I guess. But I expected, I was like, he's probably going to say, and I said this at the beginning of it, he's probably going to, when they first started talking about Order 66, I was telling Colleen that maybe he's going to say, well, she's not a Jedi anymore. And so he wasn't going to do it. But I was like, but they went the opposite of that. I was like, oh, man.
Like, but they do try to use that to get out of a bad situation later, where he does try to talk to his fellow brothers after his chip is removed by Ahsoka, and he does use that, which it kind of throws them off for a little bit, but they don't buy into it. So, but yeah, I mean, it just at that point, she helps free Darth Maul, but she tells him, whereas I love how she tells her, this is not a team up. I need you as a distraction, And he's like, can I get a fighting chance? Talking about her lightsabers, and she's like, I am not rooting for you. So that was good. I mean, that kept within character, and yeah, sometimes in movies, when the hero teams up with the bad guy, you're like, okay, whatever, So I'm glad they stuck to their guns and like, nope, she would not team up with him.
Yeah, for the longest time, Luke was my favorite Jedi until Ahsoka. I think
really? Wow.
Now that Ahsoka's been on there, she is my favorite Jedi.
Yeah, when we talk about the overview of the series, I definitely want to focus on her, because she's quite the interesting success story when it comes to this show. But real quick before we move on to that, we've got to talk about when she finally well, like when she finally gets away from everybody, and the cruiser that she's on is crashing onto a planet, which we don't know what it is yet, but apparently we find out towards the end which planet she crashes on. But after they survive the crash, her and Rex, when she buries all the clone troopers, that were, and there's still, some of them still have her face paint on their helmets, because remember she got a battalion that dedicated themselves to her, so that was even more tragic. And it's the first time I've seen that image, because of course in The Mandalorian we saw an image of stormtrooper helmets on pikes, and of course that's always a very shocking and negative image to denote that, hey, these guys were taken out by somebody. But in this case, they take that imagery and they flip it, and it's her, the way she honors them, because she's buried all of them, and they're not pikes, they're just wreckage basically, and she just props their helmets up on them. So I thought that was pretty interesting, kind of like a twist on that idea.
Well, because it was crazy, because she was so close with a lot of these clones, and you could see that it really took its toll on her when all of that went down. So you could really feel it, and it really came across in that episode how she felt about it.
Oh, by the way, guys, I forgot to say it, and I'll just have to put it up at the beginning. But obviously, spoilers, because
Kind of spoilers.
This is too hard to talk about anyway. But I'll just go back and put it so they'll know at the beginning. It'll be in the title too, because there's just no way to talk about this without spoilers. But yeah, so she, we get an interesting flash forward, and you realize that the planet they crash landed on was Hoth. And then we flash forward to obviously the end of the opening of Empire, because it appears that the rebels have already left, because Vader and the troops are just kind of scouring the area, and they find that old wreckage. Oh, and she leaves her lightsaber. I forgot about that, which are the ones that Anakin gave her. Because I haven't seen Rebels, but I had already read or heard that she gets new lightsabers in Rebels.
But she leaves one lightsaber.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So I didn't see the other one, and they didn't really mention anything. It's just the one lightsaber.
Did she lose it during the battle? I thought she might have lost it.
I don't remember her losing it through the battle.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and look, but yeah. So basically, Vader finds it. I'm sure he realizes it's hers, and then that's one of the clone trooper helmets is on the ground, and he walks away with him in its reflection. So it's just a pretty powerful ending. It was totally unexpected, because I was like, when I realized where they were, I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
It's like, who brought up that idea? Because that's a nice segue into, like I said, I kind of want to talk about the series as a whole now, because before, like when Disney cut it off, it was real easy. It was like, okay, if you really want to, you just watch the Clone Wars in between episode 2 and 3. And then when they announced this one, it's like, well, it's going to overlap with Revenge of the Sith. I'm like, oh, okay, that's going to be interesting. I wonder how they're going to do it. So then we watch those episodes. They get past Revenge of the Sith, and it's like, okay, so how would you watch these now? And then when they throw that scene in there, I'm like, okay, now when would you watch this show? Because you wouldn't get it unless you had already seen Empire.
Yeah.
So what do you think?
I don't know. I think they were trying to give a lot of nods to the movies, and there's even a nod to Rogue One in there as well, if you remember that.
What's that?
When she's trying to get the chip out of Rex, she starts saying,
"Oh yeah,
with
yes."
me." She keeps chanting that, and we were like, "Oh, right, that's from Rogue One."
But that's good old Dave Filoni. That's him. Just he's got an encyclopedia, or he is an encyclopedia of Star Wars. So
they're pandering to the fans. They have to do that now, because this whole ordeal with what's her name, Kathleen.
Oh, Kennedy, yeah.
Kennedy. That's kind of like everybody's messing it up, and like she made sure scenes were cut that Daisy did that she really wanted in there, because there was a bigger battle scene between Palpatine and Ben and Rey that was supposed to be in that movie, in the last movie, that wasn't in there.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean that's why it's nice to have him. You know, he's got his hands in this. Obviously, he's got his hands in the Mandalorian. So it's cool. I hope he gets. And now, like we mentioned earlier, we got Taika Waititi, and he had his hand in the last episode of the Mandalorian. So we've got a good group of people coming on. You know, that I feel are really gonna kind of right the ship now with some new stuff. But you know, because I've always had the struggle going back to, like I said, you know, when would you watch Clone Wars if you're watching these? I actually had a friend who runs a site called Geek Sushi. It's actually here in New Braunfels, but it's all like on Instagram. And he said he just tried to show his daughter like episode 1, and they couldn't make it through it, and then they barely made it through episode 2 and 3. And I was like, you know, I've kind of come to the realization that I think I would just start, you know, someone off with the originals, and then if they like it enough, then they can go back and watch the prequels. And then if you like all of that, and of course if you're going to watch the new ones, but then if you want to know more, then you can go back and watch Clone Wars, especially now, because if you hadn't seen Empire, that last scene's not going to mean anything to you. You know, so it's interesting how they've done that now. But
then you have to think about it. Where do you stick Clone Wars in? Or Clone Wars? Where do you stick Rogue One in?
Oh, you mean in order to appreciate that?
Yeah.
Yeah, because you would know, you would actually watch Rogue One later. Well, no, see, that's the thing. I think you'd still watch Clone Wars after you watched Rogue One. Like, you could do the countdown, like we did a countdown leading up to episode 9. We watched everything, episode 1. The only one we didn't watch was Solo, and it was not because I have a problem with that movie. It's just because I was trying to do 2 a night, and Solo would have been by itself, literally. No pun intended. But anyway,
a lot of people didn't like Solo, which I really like Solo.
Yeah, no, I did too. I mean, I ended up seeing it twice in the theater, so I didn't have a problem with it at all. I mean, honestly, I think it'd do well to continue on Disney Plus. It's just a regular series. You know, it doesn't have to be a theatrical movie again.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just interesting, and of course, one thing that me and my friend Noah talked about when we did our Rise of Skywalker review is that a lot of stuff with Star Wars seems to be after the fact. You know, it's like they come up with something good, or there's a good reaction, and then they'll add it into the mythos. You know, and it's fine, but it can be a little frustrating sometimes. But yeah, I just I will say Clone Wars is definitely a commitment. It took me a while to get through all the episodes. I always jokingly tell people, I was like, I felt like I was in the war. Like, I felt like it was happening in real time. Like, I'm like, oh my god, I mean, this is good, but when is this going to end? So
I remember talking to Colleen about it, and there was this entire is when the young Padawans were trying to search for their kyber crystals. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah, I remember that.
So
that was supposed to be a spinoff.
And I turned to Colleen. You know, Anakin's gonna kill all of them. She was like, "You're right. I can't believe you told me that."
Yeah, they were supposed to be a spin-off show.
I would have watched that. I would have definitely watched that. That was really good.
Yeah, that one was definitely more enjoyable to me than. Do you remember the series of episodes where the droids are being commanded by the little frog general? He goes on a mission with him. That was probably my least favorite out of all of them. It was just too much. I would have been fine with one episode with him doing his thing, but when they drug it out into like 4, I was like, oh my god, I'm so tired of this. You know.
But the funny thing about the Clone Wars is you feel bad for the droids too, of some of the stuff that they have to go through, and they're like, they know they're gonna like die for some of the stuff that they're doing. And even Colleen was really affected by it. Just like, oh, I feel bad for the droids, and because you hear it in their voice, even though it's kind of digitized and stuff, but you can still hear it in their voice. Like they don't want to they want to keep going. They don't want to die.
Yeah, it's always been interesting with droids because they definitely have some form of sentience, it seems like, even though they're not treated that way. So let's see here. We can just, I wanted to kind of touch just if you have any favorites, like in the Clone Wars as a whole. I know one of my favorite battles was on the world they call the Shadow Planet or the Shadow World. I don't know if you remember it. It's kind of like a purple haze. It's the one where the Jedi general with the four arms.
Yeah.
He ends up being a traitor.
Yeah.
That was one of my favorite battles, just because of the look of that planet, and the fact that all the guys they had to be in like breathers and stuff. I mean, it was like they were taking into account. Yeah, this is a true alien world. Like it's not like we're just going to land and hey, everybody can breathe and everybody just. Just charge on in there,
Yeah, that one has got to be like the most memorable one for me as well. I'm trying to think back to some others.
I think we got an underwater battle, didn't we?
Yeah, but even with even these last ones, the one where Anakin kind of jumps in with just him.
Oh yeah.
And you're like, what?
I think didn't that feel almost like an homage to the very first the movie? Remember that they had a Clone Wars movie, and weren't they fighting on a bridge like that? Because at first when that sequence started, I was like, are we doing a flashback? Because if you go back and watch that movie, I'm pretty sure they start off on a bridge with a very similar assault, and so yeah, but that was funny. But yeah, let's let's go since that was Ahsoka's debut in that episode. Let's talk about her. Like, why don't you tell me like what for you like what made Ahsoka surpass Luke for you?
It seemed well, she was trained a lot longer than he was, for one thing. And she seemed to get it. She seemed to understand the living force. I think it even goes back to like how Qui-Gon kind of like was teaching Obi-Wan, and Obi-Wan kind of must have taught Anakin that way of to appreciate the living force, like be mindful of the past and the future, but not at the expense of the moment. And I think Ahsoka kind of really understand the idea of the moment, and she was always in it for that moment and doing things what she thought was right for that moment. And that's why I always liked her as a Jedi.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, she's definitely the success story of this series because I will admit when they first announced her, I was like, "What? What do you mean he has a Padawan?" She's just gone before Revenge of the Sith. But if they hadn't previously established that 3-year timeline between episode 2 and 3, like I said, this show you feel it, like you feel that 3 years and the hard fought battle, and I think. So that definitely allowed her to have probably the biggest arc of anybody. I mean, and then of course I didn't know if they were going to go that dark, because I was like, well, maybe she just dies, but no, they actually, they had that whole arc where she ends up quitting the Jedi Order, and because she literally becomes stuck in between their ideals. It's not that she likes the dark side, but she definitely starts questioning how the Jedi treat the light side,
Right.
So I think that's probably one of the things that of course, she's got a great design, like you said. She's a great fighter. She was learning about the Force along, kind of like with the viewers. It's almost like she's us, like we were learning along with her, and getting frustrated too, because all the things she gets frustrated about. I know people even just from the prequels are like, yeah, the Jedi were arrogant, and Ahsoka kind of drives that point home as you're seeing it through her eyes. And So yeah, I think that's probably ultimately why she became such a popular character.
Yeah, it really shows how the Jedi Council should have never gotten involved with politics whatsoever. Like, they weren't holding any office in there, but they were too intertwined with politics in there, and they shouldn't have been. And
yeah,
that was the downfall of the Jedi Order.
Yeah, I will say that the Clone Wars also really made me appreciate the world of the prequels more, because you really get to see all those characters living out what we get hints of in the movies. You get to see Amidala, knee deep in all the Senate stuff, and it's still interesting. There's still intrigue, and she still, proves herself to be a woman of action. Whenever the time is right. We do see Anakin's, gradual, turn towards the dark side, because we have enough time to see it. So it helps your, when he falls in episode 3. You're like, well, of course, I've seen everything he's dealt with for the past 3 years in their time, So I think it just strengthens that world. It's what we needed for that world to make more sense.
Right.
And for all of course the movies still have their flaws, but I really feel like the ideas in Clone Wars go back and help some of those things that people complain about in those movies. Let's see here. I think I hit all pretty much the key points I wanted to hit. Is there anything else you would like to touch on before we kind of wrap this up?
No, I really, really enjoyed it. And I really enjoyed how they kind of led the character of Ahsoka into Rebels on the very last episode. So I won't give an entire reason, but if you haven't seen it yet, see it for that reason alone. If you haven't seen Rebels, or if you have seen Rebels, then you know how she comes back into the fray. So it was really cool. I really enjoyed it.
Well, you see, for me, I haven't seen Rebels, and I purposely waited, especially once I heard that this season was going to conclude it. I'm like, well, might as well just wait now, because I can just swoop on into Rebels now that she's done with Clone Wars. So I'm kind of glad I waited. But yeah, so I don't really have ratings to give for this. It was just more of just to let people know, this series is definitely worth checking out. I mean, I think you still have to be a true Star Wars fan, mainly because of the the commitment to get it through all these episodes.
It's a big commitment, but you get to learn about all these Jedis that you see in the background, and like how they do, other than their minimal time in the movies, in the actual in the theater.
That's true. So again, if you squeeze this in, then you might actually feel for them more when they die in episode 3.
Yeah.
But anyway, guys, if you haven't checked out the Clone Wars, and you're a Star Wars fan, and you've been on the fence, or you've been waiting for this season to end, or the series to end, well, now it's over. They're all on Disney Plus. Now take your time and follow it in, and like Vince said, now, like myself, I'm going to move on to Rebels. So basically, it's like the story continues, because Ahsoka is the main focus. So, but anyway, guys, thank you, Vince, for coming on here.
Thanks for having me.
We appreciate it. Again, congrats on growing your own channel, and you guys, if you haven't checked out Geek Out SA, every Friday, 7 o'clock Central Time, it's a live show. You get to go on there. You get to talk to Vince and Colleen while they're on the show. So, very few YouTube channels do that. So definitely go take advantage of that. Pick their brain for all their nerdy stuff. So anyway, thanks to those of you who've subscribed. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. Head on over to Geek Out SA. The link will be below. Continue to add to their 1,000+ they've got. And for those of you who like the video, be sure to hit like. We hope you had a great May the 4th. And we will see you guys next time.